I was thinking about chicken and dumplings, as one does. So I was like, what if you had the dumplings on the top of a chicken and dumpling, but it was vegetables and more cheese? So that's how we got here. I'm Alison Roman, and I'm making ricotta dumplings with all of the spring vegetables. So really the hardest thing that you're gonna do here is make the dumplings themselves, which is like 3 ingredients. Other than that, you're kind of just chopping vegetables. It can be asparagus, your leeks, your ramps, your peas, whatever. That is sort of the 1-2. It's the dumpling and then the vegetable. Everything else kind of gets just made in a skillet, almost like a stir fry vibe. This is a dough that is really versatile. You can kind of eat it all year round, but today I'm gonna really celebrate spring because I'm very excited about it. Spring vegetables right now means peas in all of their beautiful forms, asparagus, and then any sort of allium. You could use leeks, shallots, ramps. I have ramps. A ramp is a wild leek. So it actually has a really different flavor than a leek. It looks really different and they cook really differently, so don't be confused. You can kind of use them similarly though. They have a really intense, pungent, garlicky flavor. To me, they're more like a really intense scallion in their shape, size, and how you can cook with them. But if you're like, I can't find ramps, that's fine too, and you can always use a leek or something like that. The idea being is that you're gonna want something a little oniony, garlicky, savory in this dish. This became a video about ramps. You're welcome. We have regular peas, which, secret, they are frozen and from a bag. And yeah, that's not really seasonal because you can get them all year round. That said, I feel like it's one of the few ingredients, kind of like a canned tomato, that I find almost better frozen and in a bag. So I don't mind using them. There's no shame in using them. Even during springtime, I feel like they should be cooked with. And then we have asparagus, which most people think of when they think of spring produce. Regardless of the thickness of your asparagus, you're gonna take the ends off. Oh no, my apartment is crooked and everything falls off. Thank you. These are actually called trash bowls. They're like Texas ware melamine, and I'm obsessed with them, and I have them in every color. I'm using mine for compost. I like to cut the asparagus on a bias, which just means diagonal. They kind of feel a little bit more elegant that way. It kind of follows the natural shape of the asparagus. Hi. So you could cut them any way you want. The important part is that they're about 2 inches long. And as for these little guys, the ramps, every time you buy ramps, and depending on where you're buying them, they're gonna look a little bit different. The general makeup is the same. There's long, crazy roots, a little bulb, a white stalk, and green leaves. As the season goes on, the leaves are gonna get much bigger, but these are kind of cute, and I like them because there's so much of the white part. The entire thing is edible, so you don't have to worry about trimming anything. I'm gonna wash these because they're pretty dirty. And they're pretty stubborn, so sometimes you wanna just like get in there. Because we can eat the whole thing, I'm just gonna cut the root off. I try to make sure that if I'm giving you a substitution that it's not gonna like rock the boat too much, that you could carry on the recipe without much of a difference. So don't feel pressure to like seek these out. If you find them, this is a great way to use them. I'm gonna cut them down just into bite-sized pieces. Again, on a diagonal. That's all taken care of, and then we're gonna make the dough. And this is not quite like a pasta dough. It's also like not like a dumpling dough. It's basically just ricotta held together with a bit of egg and a bit of flour. They're really, really easy. The only thing I'm gonna warn against is over mixing. And that's anytime you're working with all-purpose flour. It tends to develop gluten, which is what makes things tough. Ricotta is tricky because it varies so much in texture. So to me, this is like the ideal texture. If you want it to be spoonable and creamy, it should look nice and supple and not dry. If you're buying ricotta for the first time at a store and there's 2 or 3 options, maybe get all 2 or 3. Worst comes to worst, you can use it for something else, put it on your toast, I don't know. But it's a good way to know that that's a brand that you like and that's a brand you should avoid. The eggs that I got at the market happen to be blue. There's no pressure to use blue eggs in this dish. They are the same as a regular egg, they're just blue. I always encourage cake batter, cookie dough, pie crust, ricotta dumpling dough. Anytime you're making it, you wanna taste it before you cook it to make sure that it's seasoned properly. So the way that I test that without, eating the raw eggs is I taste the ricotta itself first, knowing that I'm gonna add the eggs and the flour, so I maybe want it on the saltier side now, because once I add the flour and the eggs, it's gonna, dilute the flavor a little bit, or the saltiness anyway. Okay, that is good. Lemon zest, things like that would be really good here, but I don't wanna add like 5 more ingredients to this, so we're gonna keep it tight. And at this stage, you can't really overmix it. It's just eggs and ricotta, salt and pepper. Like you can't beat this to death. So make sure that your eggs are really, really well blended in there. And then I'm gonna add the flour. I don't wanna freak you out. It's not like a life or death situation, but you want to be delicate. And for that reason, I'm not going to add the flour in batches. I'm going to add it all at once. For anyone who cares, I am a scoop and level flour person. So I like to just kind of move around the bowl and tuck it like that. And it happens pretty quickly. And that's kind of what you want to end up with. I'm gonna get my water on. You just want a large pot of boiling water, like you're boiling pasta. The dough benefits from a little hydration, meaning the flour that I've just added is currently hydrating in that ricotta and egg mixture. Letting them rest kind of just makes sure the whole dough stays together and that everything is incorporated and fully hydrated. We all know how important hydration is, even for your dumplings. Honestly, there's something about like peas and asparagus and all that stuff in butter that is so good. So I'm gonna use a bit of butter. I'm also gonna use olive oil to make sure the butter doesn't burn. The formula you kind of wanna adhere to is whatever allium you're using, so leeks, ramps, shallot, garlic, onion, that goes first in the butter and olive oil. You wanna get that soft, tender, and maybe like starting to brown a little bit around the edges. And then you're gonna add anything that is gonna take longer to cook. And as with anything, anytime you add a vegetable to the skillet or anything to the skillet, season it with salt and pepper. Ramps are honestly, they're really annoying because when they come into season, people do not stop talking about them, but there's a reason for that. And it's because they're really good and they're really nice to cook with. All right, these ramps are getting a little bit brown. The butter's browning also, which is like probably the best smell in the entire world. I'm gonna add the asparagus now, again, because it's a bit thicker and I wanna give it a chance to soften up before I add anything else. Asparagus is a very quick cooking vegetable, and that's part of the reason I like it, but you can tell that it's done because it'll go from green to like very green. When in doubt, you can always pick up a piece and eat it. So to me, that is the perfect level of doneness. It still has texture, it still has snap. And so now I'm gonna add the peas. And because these don't really need to be cooked at all, I'm just gonna toss them just to warm them through. And then I'm gonna kill the heat, set it aside while I cook my dumplings. So now all I have to do is make the dumplings. And this has been sitting and it doesn't really look much different than it did a few minutes ago, but I know that it's hydrated in my heart. And so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna boil them. The way that I like to do it, literally scoop it out of the bowl and drag it along the side of the bowl to get like one round edge. They're kind of all gonna look a little different, a little wild, a little craggly around the edges, and that's nice, I think. The important thing to know is that you don't want them too large. If they're too big, what's gonna happen in the pot is they're gonna get too soft and almost like waterlogged on the outside before they're cooked on the inside. You're also gonna notice that they're gonna puff up in the water, so know that whatever you have here, it's gonna expand. For an average pot of water, you could probably do about half the dumpling dough at a time. So these dumplings are gonna cook for about 5 minutes. They'll also, like a matzo ball, kind of start to float to the top, and that's how you know they're almost there. You can always test it. I firmly believe in the tester with pancakes, with biscuits, with dumplings. You always gotta take one out, make sure it's cooked perfectly before you sacrifice the rest of them. So they come out and they're kind of almost like jiggly. And again, I feel like I can already tell this one is not quite done. Yeah, it's a little still doughy inside, but it should be a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna keep cooking, but I'm gonna eat it still. But they're good. You can also feel them, like they just look supple and soft, and instead of like a dense, hard dough, they look light and ethereal and pillowy. If your spoon feels sticky while you're doing this, you can always rinse it in this water, and that will help you get like a really nice, clean shape. I'm gonna season them again with salt and pepper because, like I said, anytime you add anything to the skillet, that's what you're gonna wanna do. And because I have these cute little pea shoots, I'm gonna add them now. I don't wanna cook them down too much, so they're super delicate, almost like an herb. I'm gonna leave half of them raw to put on top afterwards. And if you're feeling like you're not quite wanting to flip a skillet like that, A, I don't blame you. But B, you can use a spoon. So you do wanna be mindful of preserving their little shape and integrity, which again, I'm sure is why some people are like, yeah, I'm just gonna serve it out of the skillet. Once you get to the part where it's mostly vegetables, then you can kind of take your liberties and pour them out onto the plate. And then maybe save like this last bite for yourself. Just, you'd want to know. Extremely good. So if you've got any more peas, you can just kind of Put them on top, and then parsley. Wow, this is like the largest bunch of parsley I have ever seen. And then cheese. You don't need a piece of cheese this large. This is what I happen to have, which I'm extremely excited about. But you could grate it, you could shave it. I'm gonna use a peeler. And this is something they don't also serve on the side if people wanted more cheese, which if it's people I know, they absolutely want more cheese. And then you can finish with more olive oil. So that's pretty much it. These dumplings love all sorts of vegetables, but honestly, I don't think they love anything more than asparagus, peas, and a lot of cheese. Now I have this giant platter of dumplings all to myself, which makes me feel like the luckiest lady in all of New York. They're really good.
Great.
I'm just gonna keep eating.